Cleopatra was one of the most powerful women in all of history. While the world might know her now for being beautiful, she was much more than that. She handled her entire kingdom and even grew it exponentially during the time she reigned. That involved getting involved in some serious battles. But in the Actium battle, Cleopatra's one secret power move ended up giving rise to the Roman Empire. Join us as we bring you the truth about how everything happened, and how if Cleopatra wasn't there, the Roman Empire wouldn't have been either. Cleopatra VII. Cleopatra held the throne as the final active ruler of Egypt within the Ptolemaic kingdom, reigning from 51 to 30 BC. She belonged to the Ptolemaic dynasty and traced her lineage back to Ptolemy the Soter, the dynasty's founder and a close companion of Alexander the Great. Upon Ptolemy XIV's death, Cleopatra, at 18 years old, and her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII, aged 10, ascended to the Egyptian throne in 51 BC. But that didn't go over very easily. Tensions escalated quickly. Ptolemy's advisors opposed Cleopatra, forcing her to flee to Syria in 49 BC. She later returned, leading an army of mercenaries in 48 BC to confront her brother's forces in a civil war near Pelusium, located on Egypt's eastern frontier. During this time, after the murder of the Roman general Pompey, Ptolemy XIII, seeking favor with Julius Caesar, welcomed him to Alexandria. Cleopatra, aiming to gain Caesar's support, basically broke in. She is said to have smuggled herself into the royal palace, seeking an audience with Caesar to present her case. She didn't just get his political support, but the two fell in love too. Julius Caesar ensured Cleopatra's hold on power by appointing her brother Ptolemy XIV as her co-ruler. Although he married Cleopatra in the Egyptian tradition, Roman law didn't recognize their union because Caesar was already married. But despite the legal complexities, Cleopatra and Caesar had a son named Caesarion. The situation stirred up controversy in Rome for a couple of reasons. Firstly, Egypt's perceived indulgent and pleasure-centric lifestyle was looked down upon as decadent by the Romans. Additionally, Julius Caesar, who already had two former wives and was married to Calpurnia, lacked a legitimate male heir. As the most influential figure in Rome, Caesar's desire for supreme power was unsettling for the elite Romans accustomed to power sharing. The prospect of Caesarion, an Egyptian-born child, potentially laying claim to rule over Rome as Caesar's heir, was a fear of many in Rome. So they didn't exactly have the people's support, but that wasn't even the worst of it. Following Julius Caesar's assassination in 44 BC, Cleopatra found herself in a dangerous position and swiftly left Rome for her safety. She had been residing in her own palace near the river Tiber with her young son, Caesarion, though it's believed she didn't permanently live there, frequently returning to Egypt and only visiting Rome occasionally. Cleopatra's presence in Rome had not been well received by the city's inhabitants, who had a history of rejecting monarchy after ousting kings. Her insistence on being addressed as queen didn't really win anyone over either. To make things worse, Caesar had also decided to honor her by placing a gold-covered statue of Cleopatra in the temple of Venus Genitrix, a revered goddess in his family, which probably made things worse for her. But at this point, things took a turn. During the division of the Republic among Rome's triumvirate in 42 BC, Mark Antony took charge of the eastern provinces. While facing pressing military and political tasks, his fascination with Hellenistic culture drew him to Egypt's queen, Cleopatra. Antony's priorities were to restructure the Eastern Army, secure funding, and seek revenge against the Parthians. Despite his political agenda, Antony's love for Greek culture was very clear. He embraced the cultural richness of the regions formerly conquered by Alexander the Great, earning praise and divine titles as he toured Athens, Asia Minor, and Ephesus. In Ephesus, he was honored with the divine title of Dionysus the Benefactor, reveling in the cultural exuberance. His journey led him to Tarsus, where he invited Cleopatra to a strategic meeting, aiming to tap into Egypt's wealth, grain supplies, and strategic position. Cleopatra, aware of the benefits of aligning with a powerful Roman figure, delayed her departure, heightening anticipation for their encounter and solidifying her political position both within Egypt and in relation to Rome. She knew exactly what she was doing. She made a grand entrance into Tarsus, sailing up the Cydnus River in a beautiful boat adorned with gold, purple sails, and silver oars. Accompanied by music, Cleopatra, dressed as Aphrodite, sat under a canopy while young men who looked like Eros fanned her, and girls resembling sea nymphs attended her. To make it an experience, there was also perfume being sprayed throughout, so everyone could smell her arrival. Antony's entourage even ended up abandoning him to join the crowd and trying to catch a glimpse of Cleopatra. At that point, Antony intended to invite Cleopatra to a banquet, but she was already planning something and invited him instead. There was a lavish feast decorated with gold, gems, and luxurious purple and gold carpets. Cleopatra provided extravagant couches and even presented them as a gift to Antony, who found himself unable to match her lavishness. She knew how to get attention, and Antony couldn't resist it. Antony promised to safeguard Egypt and support Cleopatra's reign. As part of this agreement, he pledged to assist in the removal of her younger sister, Arsinoe, who posed a threat while in exile. Cleopatra then returned to Egypt, followed soon after by Antony. He left behind his third wife, Fulvia, and their children in Rome, and spent the winter of 40 BC in Alexandria. It was during this time that he and Cleopatra famously formed a convivial drinking society known as the Inimitable Livers. Subsequently, in 40 BC, following Antony's return to Rome, Cleopatra gave birth to twins, Alexander Helios and Cleopatra Selene. After Fulvia passed away, Antony realized he had to demonstrate his allegiance to Octavian. He did that by entering a diplomatic marriage with Octavian's half-sister Octavia. During Cleopatra's rule, Egypt flourished, and in 37 BC, Antony met Cleopatra once more to secure financial support for his postponed campaign against Parthia. In return, he promised to restore several territories to Egypt, including Cyprus, Crete, Libya, Jericho, and a lot of Syria and Lebanon. Their romantic relationship rekindled, and they had another son, Ptolemy Philadelphos, in 36 BC. Following a devastating defeat in Parthia, Antony publicly rejected his wife Octavia's attempts to reconcile and instead returned to Cleopatra in Egypt. In a lavish celebration known as the Donations of Alexandria in 34 BC, Antony proclaimed Caesarion as Caesar's true heir, favoring him over his adopted son Octavian. Additionally, he gave lands upon each of his children with Cleopatra. It was clear that even though he would enter in marriages for political benefit, his heart was with Cleopatra. His declaration sparked a propaganda war between Antony and an enraged Octavian, who accused Antony of being entirely under Cleopatra's influence and planning to abandon Rome to establish a new capital in Egypt. As tensions escalated, the Roman Senate revoked all of Antony's titles in late 32 BC, and Octavian declared war on Cleopatra, and with that, Antony too. It was the Battle of Actium. This battle took place near the western coast of Greece. It was a naval battle between the forces of Octavian and those of Antony and Cleopatra. Antony and Cleopatra, along with their allies, engaged in combat with Octavian's fleet. Initially, the battle was pretty even, but at a critical moment, Cleopatra made what she thought was a power move. She ordered her ships to retreat and return to Egypt. It's possible that she thought that getting her people back to their land would save them, but she's never given up on a fight before. This decision surprised and disheartened Antony, who then followed Cleopatra in breaking away from the battle too, abandoning his army. The remaining forces that remained loyal to Antony surrendered to Octavian soon after, followed by the surrender of Antony's land forces. This sequence of events significantly weakened Antony's position, leading to his eventual downfall and the strengthening of Octavian's hold over Rome. The Battle of Actium proved to be a turning point that ultimately resulted in Octavian's victory and the end of the Roman Republic, which also ended up laying the groundwork for the rise of the Roman Empire. But that wasn't the end for Cleopatra or Antony. Following their defeat, the two retreated to Alexandria, Egypt. Octavian pursued them, leading to a final confrontation nearly a year later. Amid all of the chaos, false news reached Antony that Cleopatra had died. Grief-stricken, Antony ended his life by stabbing himself. But moments later, a messenger arrived confirming that Cleopatra was still alive. Antony asked to be taken to her, and with his last breath, urged Cleopatra to seek peace with Octavian. Upon Octavian's arrival in Alexandria, Cleopatra attempted to negotiate with him. She just wanted to preserve her kingdom and her own autonomy, but faced resistance from Octavian. Instead of submitting to Octavian's rule, Cleopatra chose to end her life. Tradition suggests that she died by the bite of an asp, a venomous snake. She wanted to control her own fate, and that's exactly what she did. Do you think Cleopatra shouldn't have retreated with her army? Could that have really saved her? Let us know what you think in the comments below. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos just like this. We'll see you in the next one.